cats are amazing and they're meant to think and problem solve and hunt and work. And, they're opportunistic hunters and they are strategic hunters, but they still need to put some effort into it once in a while. They need to be presented with what we call positive frustration.
Join us for a chat with the experts as we help and encourage you to share in a life of adventure with your cat. Remember, no adventure is too big or too small. We can't wait to learn, grow, and explore with you. Hello and welcome to the Kitty Cat Go Adventure Podcast, where we discuss various topics related to traveling and adventuring with your cat. I'm your host, Emily Hall, and today I'm chatting with cat behaviorist Ingrid Johnson about cat food puzzles, what they are, and how and why to use them. You may remember Ingrid from season 1 of the podcast. She was such a wealth of information, I decided to have her back. Ingrid is a certified cat behavior consultant through the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants. She's a vet tech and cat groomer at a feline-only veterinary hospital as well. She is also one of the people behind the website foodpuzzlesforcats.com, which is a one-stop resource for all things food puzzles. Her most passionate topic when it comes to cat care. So you can see why I wanted to have her on to talk about hunting and foraging. Hi, Ingrid.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on again. I know back by popular demand.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. But yeah, I can't resist talking about food puzzles, so you're going to have to cut me off.
Well, I'm sure everyone will love to hear everything that you have to say. So
cool. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Ingrid, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and your cats. I'm sure everyone will want to hear about all your cats.
Yes. Well, I am a hospital manager, vet tech, and groomer at a local feline-only clinic. So I wear many hats, all of them, really. Very busy. And then I do the behavior consulting privately. So on my off time, I do the behavior consulting. I also do medicating consultations, which is kind of unique, and help people successfully medicate their cats. Yeah. And I lecture and do webinars and, all that kind of stuff too. But I have 4 cats right now, which is the least amount of cats I've had in 20 years. Wow. So it's very weird and it's empty and there's nobody here with me right now. So it's, different. But we have Hitch, Soren, Finn, and Tonka. Those are the 4 boys. And we also have, we should not leave Sebastian, the Great Pyrenees, out.
Yes.
Park. I'm sorry in advance if he loses it while we're talking.
No worries. I have a dog too who may or may not go crazy at some point. So I understand.
And Sebastian also forages for the bulk of his food. So.
Oh, nice. Nice. Foraging for all.
Absolutely. They're meant to work. Yeah. We all should be working a little bit more for our food.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
So speaking of the hunting and foraging, I know that's a passion of yours when it comes to cats. Can you tell us a little about why that is and why hunting and foraging is so important?
Yeah, well, how I got into it was a little bit of a kind of a downer. But just to explain how I got here and what made me rip off the Band-Aid, my house caught fire and everybody was trapped inside and everyone survived. But we had to downsize. We already live in a really small home. It's like 1,200 square feet. And so then we had to go to about 900 square feet with all 16 cats and 3 dogs. It's cozy. And I woke up one morning and my already overweight female cat was literally just like laying with her head over the food bowl. Just like, she wasn't even sitting up. I'm like, okay, you cannot just continue to gorge from a trough anymore. We can't do this. And I had already started dabbling with food puzzles. I had gone to a 4-hour enrichment workshop actually, and learned all about food puzzles. And I came home and started putting treats in water bottles. And, some of them did it, some of them didn't. And that morning that I woke up and saw Peaches just laying at the dish, I was like, that's it. You guys can do this for treats. You guys can do this for all of your food. And so I took up the bowls, I put down tons of food puzzles all over the house, and I weighed them every week because I was convinced I was going to turn them yellow. I was afraid that they were going to go into fatty liver disease because they weren't going to get enough nutrition. Yeah. And I was very wrong. They were all capable. Even my 2 tripods at the time did it. And I had a paralyzed cat as well. who I had to express her urine and feces her whole life, but couldn't use her hind legs. And she was a master forager. So don't underestimate your cats is the mantra of this Facebook Live. But, why is it important? It's important because these guys cats are amazing and they're meant to think and problem solve and hunt and work. And, they're opportunistic hunters and they are strategic hunters, but they still need to put some effort into it once in a while. They need to be presented with what we call positive frustration. When they are given this puzzle and then they figure it out, it's very self-fulfilling because they're getting what they want out of it. They're getting food. So it's a good form of frustration that just challenges them a little bit.
Yeah. Yes. That's awesome. I love how you forced all your cats into that and they just went with it. That's so cool.
Well, there's a process to it, I had to make sure like I said, I was weighing them every week because I was stressed that they weren't going to eat. And, it was hard to monitor with 16 cats who was foraging, but we were highly vigilant to make sure we saw them all engaging with the toys. My one oldest tripod, I would give room service to make sure he was getting enough nutrition and give him little handfuls. And of course we fed wet food. So this might be a good time to explain kind of how we rip off that Band-Aid and take away the bowls.
Yeah.
I'm jumping ahead. You're going to have, again, I could just go, so you have to kind of stop me. So it becomes a little bit of a challenge if they don't eat the wet food. But if they're eating wet food readily, I recommend, 2 or 3 wet food meals a day. So they're getting most of their nutrition via canned. And then you put the dry in very, very easy food puzzles, like this exerciser toy, for example, has 3 enormous holes. And one of the keys to getting the cats to do this is novel food. So a couple of mistakes people make. They take the bowl and they pour the bowl into the food puzzle and they put it on the floor and they expect their cat to work for that.
Yeah.
There's a term called freeloading. Not sure if everyone's heard of that term, but basically cats won't freeload. So if they are presented with food that is free and food that's in a puzzle, they're not going to use the puzzle. Most of them won't. Some of them will. There's exceptions to every rule.
Yeah.
But almost every other species that's been studied, humans, dogs, chimpanzees, they're very happy to work for food because instinct says I should do this. But cats are like, no, it's right there. I don't know why you guys are doing that. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And I get it. I don't think it's that they're lazy. They are intelligent enough to be like, you need to make it worth my time.
Right. Yeah.
So you put novel food in the puzzle. You've got your regular old bowl of dry they've been sitting there with for 10 years. They've been eating the same thing. That's just sitting there. And then you've got your wet food. So in like the first few days, they've got way too much food available. It's really easy to make sure they're eating. So as soon as I notice that the cats are eating the wet food well, or foraging, or both, the bowls of dry go away. So they've got to eat something every day. You can never say if they're hungry enough, they'll figure it out, or if they're hungry enough, they'll eat it, because cats would rather starve than eat an unacceptable meal.
Wow.
They will. They're very good hunters. They rarely miss their mark. That's why a lot of times they won't eat food from the fridge that's been cold. They don't eat cold dead prey. They get fresh kill. And they're very choosy about what they eat and about the texture, size, shape, all of that. Pate versus chunks versus stews versus big kibble versus small. So they're very, very texture sensitive too. So you have to find something that motivates them. So if you put something in a food puzzle and they don't want to use it, it's probably the food. They don't want it.
Yeah.
And then here's another mistake that a lot of people make. They put like 4 pieces of kibble in here. That is super hard. It's almost empty.
Yeah.
So the first time the cat finally decides they're going to bat at it, nothing comes out. No reward. Fill it up. Fill it like 3/4 of the way full. Have it on the most giant open hole and have it just gushing.
Yeah.
Absolutely spilling with food. Once they get the hang of that, the nice thing about this toy, the exerciser from PetSafe, is you can dial it down.
Oh yeah.
So now you can make sorry, it's like opposite on the computer screen. So I'm like, I'm doing it the right way and I'm still messing it up. So you dial it down and now you make it just right for the kibble size. Then eventually you obstruct an opening. So now you make it a little harder. This toy can have 3, 2, or 1 hole.
Hmm.
So you want to go ahead and, of course, eventually get to the cat's greatest challenge level. And you have to get there gradually.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. So do all your cats now eat strictly from food puzzles?
I haven't had bowls of dry food in this house for any healthy cat in 16 years.
Wow.
They eat from bowls of they get bowls of dry if they are sickly. If I'm trying to nurse them, if they're underweight, I'll give them a sure feed and let them have access. But like I have one cat in the house that does have access to a sure feed and dry food, but he's senior, he has kidney disease, thyroid disease, and we're trying to keep weight on him.
Mhm.
So he still forages because there's unique kibble in the puzzles, but he
Mhm.
has other kibble in his bowl. So everything is motivating for him to eat.
So, what do you do if a cat only eats wet food or only eats raw food? Because, like for example, my cats, I don't feed kibble. We are strictly on like a canned food diet. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, I use treats like kibble treats when I'm giving them a food puzzle for fun. But how would you, if someone who, if there's someone who doesn't want to use dry treats at all,
Right.
and they have a very strict diet, how could they use food puzzles with wet or raw food?
Well, absolutely. I will show you. We've got our little friends, the licky mats, if you've heard of these.
Yeah.
And you smear the wet food into the textured pattern, and they can utilize this to slow down their canned food intake so they don't eat so quickly.
Hmm.
And then also there's objects like there's puzzles like this one here, the Trixie Pet Fun Board. A lot of people have seen this. It's a very
Yeah.
popular puzzle. This right here is actually for wet food. It's called the tongue module. So what you're
Oh.
supposed to do is smear the food into that pattern or into those little kind of like ice cube tray things, and they're
Hmm.
supposed to lick and work it out of that. But the other thing that I would say, without getting too controversial, is I don't agree with feeding raw, and dry food doesn't kill cats. Cats need to crunch something. And a lot of cats that eat wet food exclusively have pica issues. They're ingesting things that are not food. And I like to, at least at the very minimal, feed some dental kibble in their puzzles because they need to mimic the feathers, flesh, and bone they were crunching through in the wild. Wet food is great. They're carnivores. They need meat. But in the wild, they would have feathers, flesh, and bone that helps with their oral health and gives them something to satiate that crunch. Crunching is a feel good sensation. It actually releases serotonin into the brain, which is the same thing that Prozac does. So a lot of cats that eat dry, no dry, are often very frustrated. So I find that happy medium, and that's what foraging does for us: is heavy on the wet food, and then all the dries and puzzles, so that they don't get very much, and you have to make the puzzles harder so that they're not getting too much kibble.
Yeah.
And some
Makes
cats
sense.
don't like wet food, so
Yeah.
there's that. I've had 28 cats in my adult life, and I have had 5 that will not touch wet food.
Hmm.
And they also won't eat human food. They won't eat yogurt or cheese. They just want dry cat food. And I mean, one of them lived to be 19 years old. So
Yeah.
it's not like it's detrimental. It's just more brand than it is dry versus canned.
Yeah. Yeah, so someone is asking about how to transition from free eaters to forage feeding. I know you touched on that a little bit at the beginning. Can
Yeah.
you sort of walk through that process?
Yeah. So first and foremost, we have to start with really easy puzzles. So we talked about the exerciser, but I also wanted to mention this foraging cup that I make. One of the nice things about this is you can actually lay it on its side and allow them to extract the food with their paw. And you can even put wet food in here. You could put wet food like in a coffee mug, even laid on its side on a placemat, and make them scoop the wet food out with their foot. There's a whole wet food puzzles page on the Food Puzzles for Cat website. So it's more challenging, but you can do it.
Yeah.
So I put the dry in here, let it spill forward. The cat eats what's on the placemat. Then they stick their face into the cup and they get what they can. And then when that's not working anymore, they start reaching in with their foot. Once that's happening, you add the lid, and then they're like, what's wrong with this thing? It's broken. And they start pushing it, and foraging
Hmm.
begins. So I wanted to touch on that because a lot of people struggle with getting their cats to do this, and it's because they need to break it down, make it a little easier. And then we dial it back and increase the challenge so that they don't get too much food.
Mhm.
So hopefully this person who's asking this question that their cat likes wet food. And so if they like wet food, then 2 to 3 wet food meals a day and put novel kibble in the food puzzle. This is also a really great time if you're having a cat with like a medical, say you've got a cat that's been diagnosed with urinary crystals and they have to eat a urinary diet. This is a great time to implement food puzzles. You get the new urinary food and you put that in the puzzle. So the cats think that that's a treat. They
Mhm.
have no idea it wasn't sold in a little cutesy bag. They just know it's special and it's different than what they had the other day, you
Yeah.
know? So they think they're foraging for treats. And again, the dry food bowl goes away as soon as you see them start engaging with the toys.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. Um, so how if someone is not strictly feeding their cat from food puzzles, if they're using them just as like
Yeah.
fun things, how often do you recommend that sort of that enrichment activity of solving food
Oh,
puzzles and
every day. Yeah, every day. Absolutely. Um, I have with the 4 cats, I probably have about 6 food puzzles floating around in the house at any time. So basically, what because cats eat 9 to 16 meals a day, what I try to do here is find the happy medium between strict meal feeding, which leaves them frustrated, and lack of control. When you take the ability for them to control access to their basic needs away, you create stress. A lot of cats eat their wet food quickly and then they sit there for 6 more hours, maybe 8 or 12, waiting for their next meal.
Mhm.
That creates frustration and anxiety and stress because cats need to be able to get what they want when they want, and they have no opposable thumb. So giving them that wet food for breakfast in the morning and then leaving them with a puzzle to work throughout the day provides that control, but without the boring eating from a trough that comes with a bowl,
Mhm.
you know? So it allows control, it decreases their stress. And, because you can't be there to scoop up, 10 little teaspoons of food all day and give them 10 meals. But a lot of times, meal feeding are some of the cats that I see more behavior problems with because they're frustrated and they're hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a good example. This is about how big a cat's stomach is, about the size of this ping pong. So they need to eat 9 to 16 small meals a day that are this big. So when we
Wow.
feed them twice a day, we're starving our cats. Leaves them
Yeah.
very frustrated. Yeah. So the foraging is like the happy medium. There's food out 24/7, 365 in this house. They always have food. They just have to work for
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Big difference.
Someone, Darren is asking, could they start by hiding their feeding dish around the house and then maybe smaller dishes than normal hidden in multiple spots? Would that
You
be?
could. I've told people before that if they wanted to take little tiny handfuls and like leave a little on their cat condo and leave a couple little kibbles on their favorite windowsill perch so that they can just kind of discover little piles, that
Mhm.
can work too. Yeah. But you can also do things like use an old ice cube tray or a muffin tin or an egg carton, and you can put a couple kibbles in that. And then that way, at least you get some scooping motion going. So they start to learn to use a stationary puzzle. And we should probably talk about the difference between stationary and rolling puzzles too, to help everyone.
Yeah.
Um, so this is a really good beginner stationary puzzle. It's made by Catit. And one of the reasons I like it is because it provides a lot of versatility. If the cats are a really slow starter, you can just put the kibble around this edge. You don't have to put any food in here. I mean, you can, but you want to put some kibbles right along the edge so it's super easy for them to just pull it off with their foot. That's all they got to do. Just
Yeah.
learn to engage with the object. And then we start sneaking it into the tunnels and we start sneaking it into the little maze. But this is good too because you can put wet food in here, you can put wet food in here, and you can put wet food in here. So this can be a versatile puzzle. It's super easy to clean. You just rinse it and it comes totally clean. So stationary puzzles as a whole, I have found are a lot easier. They get wiped out quickly. So in my household of what I call master foragers, I just take a little handful and I give it a sprinkle, and that's it. I want them to have this for the mental stimulation, the novelty, but it's literally will be empty in 3 minutes in my house. So I just use it for novelty and for, something unique. And then with the rolling puzzles, once we get beyond, the cup and the exerciser, we want to start moving over to objects that are opaque. This doesn't offer any visual cue. It's going to, be more erratic with the movement and roll and be a little bit more all over the place. So there's a little foraging for humans too. You got to get it back out on the playing field. But eventually we make our way to, these are toys that I make that are available on my website. I call it the gear, because it's kind of nubby. I don't know if you can appreciate, but it's bumpy. It's like a cog and wheel, so it doesn't roll quite as well. So this is a little bit harder, just a little bit slightly more challenging. And then eventually we put the ping pongs that I showed you inside the gear.
Oh.
So this is how my last two cats, Finn and Tonka, learned to forage on double stuffed toys.
Wow.
So they're going to be like writing code and, that's good. So again, and particularly for people that don't want to feed much kibble, you don't have to, but you can give your cats control in their life again, and you can give them the feel-good sensation of the crunch. So you fill that ping pong up and you put all of them in here. And the other thing that you can do is you can just dummy stuff the toys. So you could put like some old balls or mice or, everyone's got that graveyard bucket of toys in their living room that the cats have nothing to do with anymore.
Big chest. I have a big chest.
Your food puzzles. Yeah. You put them in the puzzles and then those objects are in the way. So they're whittling it around, but it's hard for the kibble to make its way out of the hole because there's something in the way.
Yeah.
Another really easy thing, crinkle up some paper like that you'd put in your shredder, stuff it in a food puzzle, and now the kibble has to work its way all around the little nooks and crannies of the crinkled up paper. You can make everything harder. The everyone at our vet office always leaves with an exerciser, but they usually also leave with a ping pong because you go from 3 holes to 2 holes to 1 hole, ping pong gets filled, put inside.
Nice.
So everything can be made more challenging down the road. And then eventually we make our way to cubes. It's not that hard. They do it. They empty it entirely. I promise you.
Yeah, that's cool. Are you a cat adventurer looking for a sense of community, extra motivation to get out and do more, and ways to strengthen that bond between you and your cat? Or maybe something to challenge you to push the boundaries of cat expectations? Take your adventuring to the next level in our Trailblazers membership community, where I provide monthly challenges and activities designed to give you that extra push as well as fresh ideas of things to do with your cat. Trailblazers is made up of cat adventurers from all over the world, some just getting started and some with years of experience, all ready to give you support and encouragement, share in your victories and struggles, and help you and your cat reach your goals. You'll find yourself right at home amongst your tribe. Learn more at kittycatgo.com/trailblazers. So some of these toys you mentioned you sell on your website.
I do. I hand make every single one of them on my deck. I've been doing it for probably 16, 18 years I've been making these, because when I first started, nothing that I have to show you here was available. There was nothing to buy. Yeah. So, but a lot of my puzzles actually complement a lot of commercially available ones. And I have a video that I made called Maximizing the Use of Your Food Puzzles. For example, this is a small dog toy. It's called the Kibble Nibble. It's a toy in its own, all by itself, right? It's a big kind of egg-shaped object and the food comes out the 2 ends. But I fill one of my wiffle balls and put it inside.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay, Terry says, typically we use puzzles only when we can't be actively engaged. How do you feel about clicker training for the dry versus foraging?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. You can clicker train for the dry. I still think it's important for your cats to have control, but you can absolutely use dry kibble for clicker training. In fact, for some cats, that's all we can use. This is kind of a little fascinating fun fact, but almost all the cats that I know that do not like wet food and will not eat treats or human food will eat a different type of kibble as a treat.
Yeah.
So, say you feed adult maintenance of some brand, give, their hairball diet as the treat.
Yeah.
That works really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can totally clicker train, and you can also, toss the kibble game is fun because that just keeps them running,
Yeah. Yeah, I do that when I'm clicker training. Like when I'm, my cat does what I'm asking them to do, I click and then I toss the treat so that they have to run and get it instead of just handing it to them.
Yeah. Yeah, that can keep them busy.
Yeah. Um, Darren asks, is there a way for your cat to communicate if a particular puzzle is too hard for them so you can go back to the basics?
Yeah, they'll pretty much not use it, or they will meow at you a lot because they are hungry and the food will be full in the toy. So that is something too that we have to be really mindful of. This is like really basic nuanced stuff, but I can't tell you how many times it's happened. The kibble's too big for the hole. The human didn't know. Cat can't get any food out. Not nice. People buy something that they just think is cool looking, but it's way too hard for their cat. This is a small dog toy. This is heavy. It's weighted. It's awesome, but it's for a master forager. It's not for somebody who's just beginning. Most people get toys that are too challenging, and that's why their cats won't engage. And then the whole filling it up and novel food are the other key components to making it work. I also like particularly when you're first, you start a new puzzle that's really challenging and you want to teach them how to use it, put some treats in there. Put some freeze-dried chicken in there. Put something in there that's motivating. So every once in a while they get some gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Darren also wants to know if you have any videos of your cats cracking those hard puzzles, like your cube and the.
Darren, you need to go to my YouTube channel. And you will be down a rabbit hole for days. I think I probably have about 70 foraging videos on there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, it's if you haven't been to my YouTube channel, it's almost all, there's the how-to videos are on there, but it's almost all foraging videos.
Yeah.
There are some really challenging puzzles that are more of what I call a brains over brawn puzzle, and I didn't pull any of those. But the one specifically to look for is the Trixie Pet board that's called the Poker Box. And yes, you should check that out because the cats have to learn to pull a string to open a drawer. They have to learn to open lids.
Wow.
And you should see my cat Hitchinson. He's just all handsy and he's got it emptied out in just minutes it's hilarious.
Yeah. I have one of the Trixie Cat ones. It's not that one. I've got this one.
Oh yeah, the brain mover.
Yeah, and my cats are great at the slides. They haven't quite figured out this one yet.
So what I do with that one to teach it is I leave it out a little bit. You may have already done that.
Yeah.
Kind of leave it extended. And then if they do they like churu? Is that on the list?
Yeah.
Yeah. So some churu in there, or maybe some freeze-dried chicken or baby food, something really high value. So they learn to, hey, I'm gonna pull this out. There's stuff in here.
Yeah.
I bet they do it for kibble though. I'm just saying.
No, they do. They do their puzzles. I use kibble in their food puzzles. This one too is the other. I just have two food puzzles. This one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yep. They love this one. The spinny wheel gets them, man. I only have a couple of cats who have figured out the wheel spinning.
That's a little bit more challenging too, and those puzzles can lock, so you can lock that wheel.
Yeah.
That one piece just slid and fell, and it locks it into place.
Yeah.
This is another one that I really like. This is a Trixie one too. It's a commercial for Trixie Pet and Cat It. What I wanted to point out was what I did with this to make it harder. So I don't know if you can appreciate it is filled with kibble, but can you see the little clear bead in here?
Mm-hmm.
You hear it clunk? Yeah. There are, those glass beads that you put in vases so that they're weighted from Bed Bath & Beyond. That's what's in here. So it's heavy. And then I taped up two of the holes.
Oh.
So it's only as, I mean, they still empty it, but it's as hard as you can make something like that, you
Yeah.
know? And then here's another fun thing that you can do. So the ping pong balls, I'm telling you, people buy like a dozen for me at a time. I always stress when I get a ping pong ball order because they like wipe me out of ping pongs. You can take this and you can drop it down inside. So, you've got a toy like this. This is called the digger from Cat It because they have to
Mhm.
scoop and dig. So you've got two things that happen here. Either the cat spins the ball until the kibble falls out and then they scoop out the kibble and extract it, or they at least scoop out the ball and then have to go forage the ball empty.
Yeah.
And this is also a good beginner toy for a lot of cats. The digging motion is challenging for some, but you can take these out and lay them on their side.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And you can also put wet food in there.
Mhm.
So that offers some versatility and a way to break it down and help with the learning.
Yeah. Um, so Louisa is asking how you make sure your cat is eating enough or an appropriate amount, especially if you have more than one cat. How do you know which of them are eating what and how much?
So my question to people usually when they ask me this is a lot of people are free feeding and they have no idea how much their cat is eating anyway.
Mhm.
So if they're meal feeding and they're strictly meal feeding, they're still going to have a handle on how much wet food they're eating. So they're still going to be able to control that. I don't typically measure the dry. What I do to control the dry is make the foraging harder. And if the waistlines are a concern, then we talk to our vet about something that's less calorically dense. And we maybe do like a high protein, low carb food so that it is more likely that they keep the weight off. So
Mhm.
you can certainly offer a puzzle to one cat and offer a puzzle to another cat, but you would have to keep them separated while they forage. And I don't really encourage my clients to incorporate foraging that way. I want the cats to have the independence to walk over to the toy and use it at any given time. So I don't measure. I just make sure that they always have wet food and they always have dry food and puzzles.
Yeah.
So everyone's different. If they want to measure, then they'd have to separate the cats.
Yeah. Um, Darren is asking if there's any way of telling if a cat's IQ has improved and can they get smarter?
Well, I do think that they can get smarter and I do think that they can become more skilled. But
Yeah.
sometimes we have to make sure that we're not misinterpreting motivation for skill. Because again, some of these puzzles are more of a brains over brawn. And if it's just a matter of whacking it around long enough until they don't hear anything rattling around inside, it's not necessarily a level of intelligence. So I
Mhm.
think it would be, you know, a lot of people joke and will say to me, oh, my cat's too dumb to forage. 28 cats, every single one of them did it. I don't think that's true. I think it's just that people are not learning this information that we're going over to give their cat the proper motivation to learn how to play the game.
Yeah.
So I really don't think every once in a blue moon, there might be like a handicapped cat or a really old senior that we can't get to do it. Like for a senior, we would just put something extra in there for calories and just have it let it be your enrichment for like cognitive dysfunction and just give them something fun to do.
Mhm.
I'm not going to use it as a way to restrict necessarily.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't think we can use food puzzle necessarily as a way to measure intelligence. Not necessarily.
Yeah. Makes sense. Um, how often do you do weigh-ins? Margaret is asking.
So now, after I crossed the threshold where I was no longer paranoid, I did the weekly weighing for, God, probably 6 months, all 16 of them. It's a
Wow.
lot.
Yeah.
But now I weigh everybody every month when they get their heartworm prevention and their nail trim and any monthly things that they get, like vitamin B12 or something like that. So everyone gets weighed every month.
Yeah. That makes
Mhm.
sense. Yeah, I weigh my cats. I do a temperature check and a weigh-in and log it all so I know what is like their normal baseline, you know?
That's cool.
Uh,
Temperature check's a little invasive there, Emily.
I just ordered a thermometer that's just came out that will go under the arm. I haven't gotten it yet. It hasn't arrived here, but
Let me know how that works.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear.
yeah.
The new microchips that scan that give you the temperature at the same time that when you scan them. That's pretty cool, but not all
Oh,
cats have the right. Did you know that those exist?
no.
Yeah, the newer brands of chips also provide body temperature, which is pretty cool.
That is pretty neat. That's pretty cool. Um, let's see. Looking through my questions, see what we
I
haven't
know. I'm
covered.
sorry. I just went on a tangent. Just let me know if you want me to stop
No,
talking.
no. I mean, some of the viewers have been asking some of my planned questions too. So I'm like having to go through and be like, which ones have we covered already? Um, okay, so I guess we've sort of covered this, but what about if you have a cat that isn't food motivated? Like I know some people run into this issue with clicker training. Their cat won't trick for treats, and maybe won't do food puzzles for treats. Is there any advice you have for that?
So that again, that's usually a issue of increasing the value of the food and making the toy so easy. It's almost no effort. And then you gradually increase. So some cats never make it to cubes,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Some cats will never go beyond like that Trixie Pet Fun board or that other stationary board.
Hmm.
But I have had the whole gamut. I've had the ravenous overeaters and I've had the cats that I have to beg to eat, and they all still forage. They still understood the concept.
Yeah.
So it really is about increasing the value of the food and having it literally gush. So this particular individual that's asking this question, the foraging cup laid on its side on a placemat with the food spilled forward, and just monitor for a week.
Mhm.
Eventually they're going to, nibble down at it, but you've got to make sure that you're giving them something novel. And I'd throw some treats in there too.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Do you have any like particular special game or activity suggestions? Like one of the things that I do with my cats at Easter every year is I have an Easter egg hunt and I fill like 50 eggs and hide them all around my living room, and then I let them all out, and then they have to find the eggs, and there's always one. My cat Samson always finds like 75% of the eggs, and everyone else, they're into it for like 15 minutes and then like okay, whatever. And then
Yeah.
one is always just watching. It's always super fun. Do you have any like special games or activities like that?
Yeah, well, did we talk about this last time? I do every fall I do like a rooting box with the dried leaves and pine straw and sticks and pine cones and stuff.
Yeah,
And so I don't remember if we talked about that last time or not, but
yeah, you
that
you did. You mentioned that.
so I like to do seasonal things. I also do like a little foraging ice cube. I put chicken meat in broth flavored ice cubes, and then
Hmm,
I put those in the water bowls, and then they can, or you could put it in the bathtub. You could put it on a cookie sheet. You could put it wherever,
yeah,
and they bat it around. They play with it, and then as it melts, it's delicious. They lick the broth, and then it's like a Tootsie Pop. They
yeah,
get a piece of meat on the inside.
yeah.
I also I don't have one here to show you, but foraging pinatas are fun. So that could be like Cinco de Mayo or something if somebody wanted to celebrate. I've made them out of cups before, but there's actually a product made by PetSafe called the Doorway Dangly, and that's
Hmm,
featured on the Food Puzzles for Cats site too. There's a YouTube video. There's a YouTube
cool.
video for almost every toy on the market. Just go to my
Yeah,
page.
foodpuzzlesforcats.com for everybody. That's Ingrid's site. It's you and another
Dr.
person.
Michael Delgado and I host that.
Mhm.
So we should probably explain why it's there. And so Dr. Michael Delgado and I and two other colleagues, Dr. Leticia Dantes and Dr. Tony Buffington, we all four collaborated on a paper that was published in the Journal of Feline Medicine and Surgery in 2016.
Hmm.
And it's still one of the most popular papers in the history of the journal, which is amazing, really cool.
Wow,
Um,
congratulations.
yeah, I don't think it's the most popular anymore. It might be. It was the most widely cited for a couple of years. It was just really, really awesome that happened. But
Mhm.
so what we did is we created the website to complement the paper as a resource for veterinarians, vet techs, and clients alike. So basically, anyone can learn about puzzles, learn how to make puzzles, and within the website, you'll see a starring category, and it either has 1, 2, or 3 stars. And that's not about good or bad; they're all great. It's about easy versus hard.
Mhm.
So it's a great way for you to shop for your first food puzzles because it helps you know, okay, this is a beginner, this is intermediate, and this is Kitty Einstein,
Mhm.
you know? And then the paper, it's not a pretty version of it, but the paper is available to anyone who's interested in reading it. So there's a lot of good info on there and it's all free. And there's a link to where you can buy the puzzles in every post.
That's cool. Yeah. Awesome. Um, Darren is asking if you have used those talking buttons before, and are foraging cats more productive? Are they more likely to try new things?
Yes, that I will say. So I've never used the talking buttons. Not interested in those. But the fact that my cats forage and are clicker trained, I
Mhm.
think I can get them to do most anything I need them to do. I can teach them a new trick relatively easily. I can medicate everybody. I think it really adds some value and something to the relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have found I don't think it's true for like every single cat just because they're foraging doesn't, means they're gonna like want to high five you. But I just think it's about the whole picture, you know?
Mhm.
It's doing all of the little things, taking them outside on leash and harness and clicker
Yeah.
training them and foraging and training them to take medications and all of that stuff just helps build the bond and also helps build a language between you.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest things, why I do what I do, like why you do what you do is the
Yeah.
encouraging the adventuring, not just because it's physically and mentally rewarding for your cat, but it also builds the bond and the trust between you. And so then your relationship is stronger. And then doing things like, having to pill them and clip their
Mhm.
nails, and it just all is easier.
It is a lot easier. It really makes a difference to get ahead of it. And yeah, I mean, not that this talk is about medicating, but I cannot emphasize enough to train your cats to take pills when they're young or when they're new to you. Do it before you need to give them a pill.
Yeah. Yeah. Think so.
It's all the difference.
Um, Well, let's see. I think I have asked all of my planned questions.
I was going to offer up one more tidbit of help
Yes, absolutely.
that, well, I have other tidbits, but this one, so a lot of people, like, they see me talking about like these eggs and stuff, and they're like, really? I don't have time for that. I'm like, don't talk to me about time because I work every single day. And but we do have to find a way to make it efficient, right? So once it takes off and you have a couple of puzzles, what I do is I get myself a nice big bin and I pre-fill them. So I have all my puzzles pre-stuffed, and as you can see from here, most of these are just household containers.
Yeah.
Like Crystal Light container, I think that's like a Kellogg's milk thing. That's a meds bottle from work. There's flavor dough, the pill stuff. So basically, you can make puzzles out of just junk you have around the
Yeah.
house, and you can pre-stuff them. So if you're a normal person, you might have like 20 puzzles and put them in a Tupperware bin, and you're cool. If you're me, you might have 150 puzzles and fill them up once every 6 weeks.
Oh my gosh. That's
It makes it
awesome.
easier. It does take me about an hour, maybe over an hour. If I do Sebastian, my dog's puzzles at the same time, usually takes me about an hour and a half to fill all of them. He has about 30 or 40 puzzles. So, but that way they stay fresh.
Yeah. And how often do you do that? You said?
I usually fill 150 about every 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
But you have to remember too, a lot of mine are double stuffed.
Yeah.
So I have to fill all the ping pongs and then put them in the tube and, fill the eggs and put them in the gear. And so that takes more time.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so Stephanie is asking if you ever have foraging activities that don't involve food.
Foraging activities that don't involve food. So I've done a little bit with scent. And there's a really great site called Nosework for cats.
Ooh.
And that is actually all about, it's not really foraging, but it is scent seeking. And so that can be a fun game. Now, I've only done it twice where I've put different scents in boxes in a room and then let a cat into the room to try to find the scent. And I did it once with some freeze dried fishy meat. And then I did it once with some silvervine. But that would be another fun game to teach them. And you can actually take classes to teach your cats to seek and do that nose work on that website. So
Interesting.
it's a
What's
good
the
fun.
website?
I believe it's nose work for cats. It might just be nose work cats. But I think I'm just remembering her Instagram, which is nose work cats. So I'm
Hmm.
not sure if the website is nose work for cats or just nose work cats. But either way, you'll get there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you'll want to check her out on Instagram too.
Yes, I do. I'm like typing it in now. Like,
I just didn't want to like go to my phone and tell you the site, but everyone can go. We'll all find it. But yeah, it's just another neat resource. So it's not really foraging so much. It's basically like teaching your cat to scent seek. You
yeah,
know, if I mean, come on, if we could train these guys to like do service dog work, it'd be amazing. I mean,
that
think
would
of
be.
all the places they can go that a dog can't.
Yeah, yeah, that would be pretty amazing. Um, how often do you remove a toy that might have food that just isn't being foraged?
That doesn't happen here. I I leave them out until they're empty, and if I were to walk up to it and like shake it, and there was like, there's like two pieces of kibble in there, I'll open it up. I'll put it in a stationary foraging board, and then put out some fresh ones.
Well, what about for somebody whose cat maybe is leaving it? How often would you recommend them to wait?
Oh, so you mean like if the food is stale, you mean like it's just
Yeah,
been
I guess
sitting
so.
out too long? I'd
Yeah,
probably give it about 5 days, and if it's been sitting out longer than that, and it's just like totally open to the air and stuff, I'd probably freshen it up.
yeah,
Yeah,
makes sense. Makes sense.
yeah.
But I also want to plug Ingrid's website because not only does she sell foraging toys for cats, she also has her own line of swag for humans. I think actually she's wearing her T-shirt. You and your husband also make like cat trees and stuff
Mhm.
like that too, right?
Yeah, we make scratching posts and vertical space and scratch ramps and balance beams for clicker training, which are really a lot of fun. They also just love to play on them. They're like
Mm.
little kids in the monkey bars. They like to lay underneath it and grab it and like army crawl. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Um, and yeah, and then I make the foraging toys too. So,
Very cool. You're so like I don't know, you have multiple things. That's so cool.
well, I mean, when we started, there was like one good scratching post on the market you could buy. Now there's like three. Most of them are too short and too lightweight.
Mhm.
There was no food puzzles. So if I was going to recommend this to my clients, I had to do something. So I started
Yeah.
making them. And I cut litter boxes because there's still not a decent litter box on the market except for the one that I cut for people. So I
Yeah, I
provide
do the same litter boxes as you. My husband and I have the like storage plastic storage containers with a hole cut
Mhm.
in it. That's what we
Yep.
used to.
Yep. Exactly. Big, open, clear, non-hooded.
Yeah.
So basically, we're just filling gaps in the market. It's kind of silly that we have to hand make every single thing that we hand make. It's really kind of mind boggling.
Yeah. Oh, somebody Tracy says that she's partway through installing vertical space that she bought from you.
Oh wow, fantastic!
Yeah.
Congratulations. Put up a photo and tag us when you do it so we can take a look and see what you did.
Yeah.
That
No,
just also made me think of something else when you asked about the foraging, like anything else besides food. I
mhm.
have had some clients who buy crickets and let them loose in their house.
Oh, really?
I can't do it.
I don't
I,
know if I could do that either. I'd
I
be
can't do
afraid
it.
of them like getting in my bed or something.
And then just they get in the walls and they're just chirping until they die. But if you have some pretty, outgoing cats, maybe they just catch them really quickly. I was like a canned hunt. It seems so wrong. If it happens organically, I have no problem with it. But to just buy them, bring them home, and set them loose to be killed, it just seems terrible. So, but anyway, their cats have a great time with it. I imagine a lot of people's cats would have a great time with it. So,
Yeah, I'm sure. I'd be so worried about them like them not catching them all and then they start reproducing in your house and then you've got like a cricket infestation or something.
just offering up every idea I can think of for your audience. Everyone's different.
maybe maybe that'll work for someone. I'm gonna pass on that one.
I always say during this lecture when I talk about foraging, I said, I'm not going to ask you to let a mouse loose in your house. Foraging is as close as we're going to get to hunting for the indoor cat. But yeah, so I really won't ask you to let anything alive loose in your house. Just
Yeah,
let you dry food and puzzles.
makes sense. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for sharing your knowledge and tips with us. I can't wait to get more food puzzles for my cats. For those listening, be sure to check out Ingrid on Instagram at Fundamentally Feline. I'd also recommend visiting her website, fundamentallyfeline.com. She has lots of information about various cat-related topics, and she also sells cat food puzzles and cat scratchers. Are you enjoying the Kitty Cat Go Adventure podcast? Let me know by leaving a review. This will help others to find it and hopefully be inspired to get out there, try new things, and go new places with their cat. What questions do you have about adventuring with cats? Or maybe you'd just like to chat with me about what you learned in this episode. Find me on Instagram at kittycatgoadventures. You can also screenshot this episode and tag me in your stories so I can see who is listening. I'd love to continue the conversation with you, so find me on Instagram or join our Facebook group, Kitty Cat Go Adventure Team, so you can connect with a whole community of fellow cat adventurers. And as always, you can find the show notes, including all links and resources discussed in this episode at kittycatgo.com/podcast. Until next time, happy adventuring.